All right, we'll go ahead and get started with at least updates, and hopefully people get the notice that the link has changed. And it seems to be working as more people come online. Okay, welcome everybody. Well, we'll join the camp of some technical difficulties today. Thank you for your patience on that issue. Good to see everyone again virtually. I hope everyone is staying in good health. Thank you for joining us for today's conversation. What we have as an agenda set up for you, just a brief update of some things that have changed since our conversation last Friday. We're going to hear from Abby Schwanger again with the Erie County Health Department, what we're seeing from the ground, as well as Larry Fletcher with some updates from Lake Erie Shores and Islands and our Visitor Bureau. Updates from State Representative D.J. Swearingen, and then the bulk of today's conversation will be about the CARES Act and the support that's being offered for small businesses across the nation. And we're joined with attorneys from KJK out of Cleveland, Stephanie Mercado and Justine Konecki, to cover that material. A lot has changed about even those programs as of this morning. So bear with us as we're getting more information by the moment. I'll be brief about this as this is going to be emailed to all participants, but what's changed, I'm sure all of you have heard. Ohio's stay-at-home order has been extended for the month of April. Some other things I wanted to point out of interest. I know many of you are still in operation, which might be why you're on the line. And I know many are experiencing some hardship actually finding employees despite our unemployment claims rising. So the state of Ohio has recently launched a job search tool for businesses that are in operation and in essential businesses that need support from new employees. So please be sure to share that with friends and family. I know I've heard from many in our food and beverage and retail culture that they had part-time employees that unfortunately aren't qualifying for unemployment. So this might be a resource for them to get connected with some income over the next month or so. Keep checking in with both public and private payment deferral options for you. We're trying to keep our documents up to date and be emailing you about possibilities for payment relief that should help with cash flow management that we're hearing as a challenge for many small businesses. And then again, today's conversation is about federal legislation and guidelines on the Family First Coronavirus Relief Act and the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, CARES Act, continue to change. So please be sure you're staying up to date with that. There are new regulations from the Department of Labor about your obligations if you are a small business with 50 or less employees that you want to be sure that you caught. We can email some resources in regards to that. But what I really wanted to note here is, of course, organizations like mine at Erie County Economic Development Corporation, but also all of those business associations that you see across the bottom of your screen are here to help. So please stay in touch with us. We're looking to provide you information in a speedy fashion, what you really need to know. Make sure we're advocating for what would be most helpful for you in different policies, and then promoting your business if you are continuing to operate. So I know our chambers of commerce and our main streets and chambers in Vermilion and Lake Erie Shores and Islands are churning out a lot of information that the public likes to patronize our local business. So make sure you're staying connected. It's essentially my message of the day. And with that, I'm going to pass things over now to Abby at the Erie County Health Department for any updates from their team.
Hello, let me share my screen.
Awesome.
It says you need to unshare, Abby, I think.
Okay.
All right, are you seeing what I'm seeing?
You're looking good.
All righty. So I'm going to try to make it quick today. I want to just give a quick update from the Erie County Health Department with a situation report, what we're seeing here. Currently in Erie County, we have 6 confirmed cases of COVID-19. We've had 6 hospitalizations, and there's been 1 death. And as of yesterday, in the state of Ohio, there have been 2,902 confirmed cases of COVID-19, 802 hospitalizations, and 81 deaths. A couple of updates that have happened in the past week or so, federal and state restrictions. So the federal government did extend their safety guidelines through the end of April. And so that is that 10-person recommendation limit of people in one place. And then the state of Ohio, Governor DeWine also extended his stay-at-home order. I'm sorry, this order actually came from the Ohio Department of Health, Amy Acton. So that order was extended through the end of April, and then the Governor DeWine's K through 12 school closures were extended also through the end of April. And so, as always, as I've said in the last couple of times that we've gotten together, just continue to plan ahead, continue to plan contingency. There is no magic date that this is all going to go away, and there's no switch that's going to get flipped that takes us back to 2019. So as we are continuing to go through this surge, and I'm going to talk about the surge here in a moment, as we continue to do that, these timelines are likely going to be extended further as well. And so please just continue to plan for that. And then one new thing that was announced yesterday by Governor DeWine was new requirements for out-of-state travel. And so if individuals are traveling anywhere out of the state of Ohio, when they return, they need to have a self-imposed 14-day quarantine. And so that means staying at home and not having any interaction with outside individuals. And then they need to also monitor their temperature. And so that's something that they will have to do on their own. We don't know who's traveled or get reports of, who's traveled to Michigan or whatever. And so that's something that individuals are going to have to take responsibility for doing on their own. However, employers may see this as an issue. So if they know of an employee that is traveling out of state, they need to work with that employee and manage a 14-day quarantine, and that means them not coming into work. Locally, we've begun to update our messaging that we're putting out there, and so you might have seen this half-page ad that's been in the Sandusky Register this week. We're really pushing to prepare for the surge. It's going to happen. We're expecting to see more cases as the next few weeks go on here. We're not expecting the peak to really hit until probably May is when we're going to see that. And so we want people to begin thinking about preparing. How are they going to deal with this when COVID-19 hits their household? And so how do you care for somebody who is ill? When do they need to go to the hospital? And really continuing to practice social distancing. I know that people are starting to get a little bit stir crazy. We all are. And I'm looking out the window right now. It's beautiful outside. It looks like it's going to be a beautiful weekend. And so we really have to find ways that we can enjoy the sunshine and enjoy the weather and stay healthy, mentally and physically, but also really protecting the people, ourselves and the other folks in the community by practicing social distancing. And so that's just going to be really important moving forward. We've also expanded our communication with the public. So as of yesterday, we started issuing joint press releases with Firelands Regional Health System. And so those are going out every morning, and they're going to contain our current county numbers, number of cases, the total number of cases, new cases, deaths, and also the number of individuals that Firelands is treating, and Firelands total patient census numbers. And so those are going out daily. And then also we've created a new dashboard, and it was actually the very first slide on this presentation, the dashboard with the numbers on it. And that is going to go live hopefully next week. By next week, we'll have that all up and live and going. And so you'll be able to visit our website and see that dashboard. And that's going to help us to really help the community stay more knowledgeable about what's going on. And we'll be able to update that in real time now. And so that's going to be very helpful. locally, we're also working on expanding hospital capacity. You may have seen some information in the Sandusky Register or on Facebook that we are working with the former Lutheran Memorial Home and turning that into hospital beds. And so that, I think it has a capacity of up to 50 beds at this point. And so we're working very hard. We have a team over there now cleaning it up, getting it ready to go. And it's going to be up and running very, very soon. And just ready. Not that the need is there yet, but as soon as it's ready to go. I did want to address a couple of things that we're seeing locally with our businesses, and a couple of things that we expect to be seeing with the weather getting nicer and people wanting to be outside with takeout. So specifically some of our, ice cream takeaway places, they have the drive-through, they have the little walk-up windows. Those are great. People want to be outside. People want to be enjoying ice cream when the weather's nice, but it's going to be really, really important that our businesses take this responsibility on themselves to apply those social distancing requirements, because we can't be everywhere all the time. That's just a reality. And you don't want us there all the time, to be fair. So, it's going to be really important, and you can take some measures. You can actually make markings on the ground outside with tape so that people know how far they need to be standing behind the next person in line. If they are ordering food and if you have tables and chairs there, those, if possible, need to be removed because it needs to be consumed off the premises. And so if you can remove those or at least block them off in some way with tape or something so that people do not congregate in one area, it's going to be really important. And we may even get to a situation where at some point, you might want to consider closing down those front windows if people are not abiding by the social distancing and only having like a drive-through area so that people cannot get out and there's no reason for them to be out there sitting. Another thing, encouraging call ahead orders if it's a food, hot food establishment of some sort. Instead of having people come up and ordering and sitting around waiting for the order, if they can do call ahead and you can bring it out to the car for curbside pickup, that would be ideal. Of course, practicing the same measures that we've been pushing all along. So making sure that environmental cleaning is enhanced. We have sanitizers that are available and being used to clean down those frequently touched surfaces. And then monitoring employees' health. So it's going to be important that any business that is open currently needs to be really monitoring employees' health. And I understand that there may be some challenges with doing that, taking temperatures at the workplace, but at least having those employees take temperatures at home and logging them and asking them for those temperatures when they do come into work, asking them about their symptoms, and then identifying individuals who are ill and sending them home, getting them out of there, and making sure that you're cleaning up the area after they leave. There is a ServSafe course, or two courses actually. I talked about them last week, and they're on servsafe.com. The link's here, so when Abby sends out the presentation, then she can, the slides, you can click on the link. And they're two just short 10-minute videos, and then you get a little certificate afterwards on ServSafe, and they're also available in Spanish as well. And so it might be a good idea to have your staff take the course and just to bring everybody up to speed on what types of precautions they need to be taking. And those are free through that servsafe.com. I'm also getting a lot of questions about boating in marinas. Again, the weather's getting nice. Everybody wants to get out there, and we certainly want people to be out and enjoying the weather. And it's going to be good for all of our mental health, I think. However, we need to make sure that marinas are also following the same recommendations that all other businesses are following. And so that means really maintaining social distancing. That's with their employees, which in most marinas probably isn't too big of an issue. There's not a lot of people working at one time. And so making sure that employees can social distance, but also making sure that they are discouraging any type of congregation among folks that are docking boats in that area. So it may be, again, a matter of removing tables and chairs, removing picnic tables, And also they need to make sure that they're monitoring employees' health and, again, cleaning areas that are touched frequently. If there are food areas or eating areas, you know, people should not be eating together at tables. And so removing tables and chairs is going to be important. Pools are closed. And so, you know, that applies to marinas. I know a lot of marinas have pools, so those need to remain closed for now. When it comes to boating and fishing, this is, again, where we need to use discretion. And so we rely on individuals to make those choices. And what we like to say, or the advice that we give is, if you are on a boat with individuals from your household, people that you live with, that you are already exposed to on a daily basis, that's fine. It's, you know, we want people out there and enjoying the weather, and fishing is great. But having multiple people from multiple different households that wouldn't normally have been exposed to each other on a boat, it's impossible to social distance. And so that is not going to be something that's okay. The same type of idea goes along with like fishing excursions. So these paid excursions where multiple people are getting on a boat from multiple different households, that's not an essential business, and those businesses should not be open. So I know that, you know, there's a lot of nuance with this, and there's a lot of discretion that needs to be used, but we just ask that people really take some time and think about it, and think about it if it's necessary, and does it put them at any risk of exposure, or others at risk of exposure. And then the last thing I really wanted to talk to some of our businesses about is the Stay Home Challenge. So we have been seeing a lot more lately, especially the weather's nice, and young people, especially young adults, you know, teenagers, young adults, people want to get out, and a lot of them aren't taking it seriously, you know, and they can't necessarily be blamed. Their brains aren't fully developed. They may not understand the full consequences of their actions. But really, when we do not follow the social distancing guidelines, we're really putting people at risk, and they're putting their families at risk. And as business owners, we all have a stake in getting things back to normal as soon as possible. And so if we can all come together and really encourage people, hey, stay home for 2 weeks, or stay home for the next month, if we can get as many people as possible to do that, slow the spread, the faster we're going to be able to get back to normal and get back to business as usual. And so we'd really like to see a lot of our businesses coming together and promoting this, you know, for the next month, and having your business have folks that are maybe working from home, or how you're practicing social distancing, taking a picture and then posting it to social media. We have a couple of hashtags here that we're using, and we want to really just get people together and get people to promote this idea, so that if we can knock this out early, and then we can hopefully get back online and get our businesses back up and running. So that was one thing I really wanted to make sure I push out there for everybody, and tag us, and we can share that, and we can hopefully come together and really create this movement moving forward. And then, of course, the COVID-19 Information Center. If you have any questions, general questions about anything related to COVID-19, you can call that Information Center. It is staffed from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., 7 days a week. So go ahead and give us a call if you have any questions. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Abby.
Thank you.
Timely updates. It's, I think, good. At least our weather's nice. I like that reminder, and those are good judgment tips. Larry, I know you've been fielding questions about this all week from our visitors to Lake Erie Shores and Islands and those businesses that support them. Is there anything that you wanted to add from Lake Erie Shores and Islands?
Sure. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. I'll give you some observations from just a couple hours ago. You know, knowing that on a day like today and a day like yesterday, our area, with the quality of the fishery we have, ironically, probably the best walleye fishing this area has ever had in any of our lifetimes. is occurring at this same time. And fishing is one of the things specifically called out in the governor's order as, being available as long as the social distancing requirements can be adhered to. I can't say for sure that I observed that this morning. I'm not being critical of any organizations or any information in the order, just an observation. Catawba State Park launch ramp, I counted more than 125 trailers, which was awesome to see. And about 25% of those were from out of Ohio. This year, like every other year, Iowa, Wisconsin, Michigan, the Dakotas, Illinois. I mean, they're coming from all over because, we've got arguably the best sport fishing in all the Great Lakes. However, with that many people and with the directive from yesterday that people, to clarify or to add on to what Abby Schwanger said, the order about the 14-day quarantine includes people coming from out of Ohio back into Ohio, or residents from Ohio going out and coming back, but also those traveling into Ohio. But it's such a difficult thing to even consider how that could be enforced. There was an Ohio Division of Wildlife officer up at the ramp this morning, and granted, this order is 12 hours old, 24 hours old, but he said, I asked him, do you have any thoughts on how you might enforce this if a boat pulls in here, a trailer pulls in here from Iowa? And he said, we really haven't been given those directives yet. I'm sure they're talking about that, but such a difficult challenge. But if people can maintain that distance and play by the rules, a day like today, I mean, I went down to Missouri in Marblehead, I went to East Harbor State Park, and the ramps are busy. I talked to a couple marina operators, because what we're hearing with marinas are listed as boats, docks, boat storage, as essential businesses. I'm finding that the marina operators, other than the state park marinas are closed, but marina operators are kind of handling things on a case-by-case basis based on their own personal preferences. So, for example, I talked to a marina operator this morning, and she said that they're putting in boats, they're allowing people access to those boats, but they don't have their restrooms open at this point in time. Their store, of course, isn't open. None of those services are available. Other marinas are opening their restrooms and do have food service available for takeout, but they're not allowing any of the congregating. As Abby said, they don't have their picnic areas available and those kind of things. And they're going to watch it week by week to decide how they handle other things like their gas stock or their pump out services. They're watching their own activity level as people are coming in to access their boats or get them in the water. And then, of course, they'll watch what the state does with this as well. So just a great challenge. I also talked to some restaurants. One of the other questions that came in earlier yesterday for this was, how is this going with restaurants that are offering carryout? Certainly none of them, with the exception of the quick service, fast food, if you will, places that always have busy drive-throughs. Their drive-throughs are busier now. They're probably okay. But all of our small businesses, our privately owned restaurants that are trying to make it on carryout are not going to be able to do anywhere close to that business level. Some that I think were trying to make it that way are trying to decide whether they really can, and I expect we'll see some of those that'll stop, offering that carryout. But we hope not all, and we hope and we are encouraging people in every way we can to get out there and support those businesses if we want them to be there when we're able to emerge from this. And the one other thing I'll mention today is and some of you know this, I know there are some of our board members on the line and some of our team members certainly, but our messaging is from Shores and Islands is taking a major pivot, starting today, to one that encourages people to stay at home now and plan their trip back to our region. We want to keep our area top of mind, but we feel we need to be part of this effort to keep people safe. So you'll start seeing this in certainly on our website, on social media posts, public relations, some of the things we do in the local community. And we'll spend a little bit of money to push that message out to some of the people that in our target markets, to let them know that now is a time to plan now and visit later, because we want to see them all back as soon as it's safe to do that. So I'll end there, and happy to answer any questions if they come through on chat.
Awesome. Thank you, Larry. I love the reminder for takeout as we approach the weekend. The civic duty to make sure that you get some yummy takeout from a local restaurant this weekend. And I did want to remind the participants that you have a Q&A function on the menu bar of this webinar. In the interest of time, I'm going to direct people there with their questions. So you can chat into any of our panelists with things that are on your mind that you'd like a response to. And next up on our agenda, we have D.J. Swearingen to give us some comments from Columbus.
Thanks, Abby.
Oh, perfect.
I will keep my comments brief so we can move on to the PPP section of the presentation. And to the extent there's any further questions for me beyond 5 minutes, which I'm sure there will be with regards to what we're up to in Columbus, I am going to host a teletown hall on Tuesday at 7:10. So I'll provide you that information so we can get that to all the members and participants today.
Yeah.
Over the last couple of weeks, we were working on a COVID package. It was House Bill 197 to address some of the gating issues with regards to the pandemic. Those included the primary election, education, taxes, licensing issues, workforce issues, some of the issues that we just needed to tackle right out of the gate. In addition, I think Larry touched on this and Abby did a little bit. There are many issues specifically coming up to our district, such as people visiting, those with second homes here, those who are coming here to fish. The governor's office has assigned us a liaison. I do check in with that individual at least every other day. And yesterday morning, we did have a conversation about the state parks and the boating and the congregating, like Larry mentioned, and the second homes, people with second homes here that may come in from out of state. And, we had that conversation, and Governor DeWine yesterday issued his new order where if you come in from out of state, like Larry mentioned, you've got to self-quarantine for 14 days. They did also comment in yesterday's press conference that Director Mertz wouldn't be opposed to shutting down specific state parks, unfortunately, if the measures could not be met and the requirements of social distancing could not be met. Specifically to our district, I'm checking in with our health departments, our EMAs, our hospitals. Our health department has just done an incredible job. From the federal side of things, we have been invited to calls with the White House, and it's been made clear to us that at least at the federal level, financially, they're prepared to float the crisis economically as much as they need to. Obviously, the administration of that and the financial capacity for that is yet to be determined, but that has been made clear to us, at least at the state level. Going forward, the governor has set up an economic task force, and also in the House, the Speaker of the House has also begun to establish an economic task force as we start to turn our eyes to the economy and how we can begin to recover from being down the last couple of weeks and being down over the next month at least. So we'll be looking at that going forward. With that, I'll wrap it up. I know we want to get on to the PPP presentation, so I'll keep an eye out for any questions in the Q&A. And again, I'd invite everyone to attend my teletown hall next week. There's no charge for that. It'll be at 7:10, and can really dive into the details of what we've been up to at that time. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you, DJ. And if you want to send that via the chat to the details right now,
Sure.
you can make a note. And thank you for the work that I know you're doing on behalf of all of our communities in Erie and Ottawa County. With that, everyone, it is time for small business resource conversation. I'm going to hand it over to experts, Ms. Stephanie Mercado and Justine Knickie from KJK. They have been working with clients all over Northeast Ohio and beyond to get them through this ever-changing book of resources and have the most up-to-date information as of this morning. There were even changes. And I just wanted to give their team kudos. If you don't follow them online or have not been to their website, I'm going to send that in the chat, and I'm sure it will be on a screen. Their resource bank that they're publishing free of charge to the public is one of the places that I know our team is getting a lot of really valuable information. So kudos to them for their willingness to do that. With that, don't forget to send in your question and answer for DJ, Larry, and Abby, and we'll hand it over to Justine and Stephanie now.
Thank you, Abby. My name's Stephanie Mercado. I'm a partner with the law firm of Corman, Jackson & Krantz, and really pleased to be part of the presentation today with my partner, Justine Knickie. I think we're just working on swapping out the screens.
Oh, I probably have to stop sharing.
Yep. Okay.
Okay.
Good.
Steph, are you seeing what I'm seeing?
I am seeing what you're seeing.
Perfect. You want to take it from here?
All right, great. So we're going to give a quick review of what the CARES Act means for small businesses, and then really do a deeper dive into PPP, which I know a lot of you have questions about. Just as you see the disclaimer, this is an informational presentation through this webinar. If you'd like to have a more detailed conversation, our office has launched a Ohio Small Business Coronavirus Hotline. You can call, you'll see the call information on the screen. You can call any time today. It's actually open till 7 o'clock. So if you've got additional questions after the presentation, we encourage you to call into the line, and we'll be able to connect you with one of the attorneys at our firm to have a complimentary consultation on some of your specific questions. As I stated, we're going to do a quick review of the CARES Act, have a detailed discussion of the Paycheck Protection Program. We're going to review the application process and materials, and then follow up with Q&A. Abby has sent some questions in advance that some of you have reached out to her directly, and then we also have the Q&A questions here on the webinar. Once again, if we don't get to your specific question, either in the presentation or as part of the follow-up, feel free to call into our hotline immediately after the presentation. So the CARES Act create a couple of overviews of the CARES Act. It creates the Paycheck Protection Program that allocated $349 billion to the Forgivable Loan Program, expands Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. It creates a new loan authority for the Federal Reserve to loan to mid-sized and large businesses. It expands unemployment for Americans who lost their jobs due to the pandemic and provides for direct payments to Americans. It allows forbearance and deferments of student loans and prevents foreclosures and evictions of single family homes and federally backed mortgages. It expands food assistance programs, and it supports healthcare providers fighting COVID-19. So now we're going to take a deeper dive into the Paycheck Protection Program. General loan terms it's a two-year loan term fixed at 1% with 6 months deferral of payments of principal and interest. The interest will continue to accrue. There's no collateral or guarantee required. The loans can be obtained from an FDIC insured financial institutions, including existing 7A lenders. We're strongly recommending that if you haven't already done so, your best point of contact would be your existing banking relationship, to get a better understanding of their loan application process. So if you haven't already contacted them, once again, we're strongly recommending that you directly get engaged with your existing banking relationship immediately. There's no fees charged to borrowers, and the uses of the loan are focused on maintaining payroll and also to pay rent, mortgage interest, and utilities. There is also no prepayment penalty. Okay, so who qualifies for this loan? It's open to both for-profit businesses and 501c3s, generally with 500 or fewer employees. You can still qualify under normal SBA industry-based classifications. There are some special exemptions to the normal SBA affiliation rules for businesses in the accommodation and food services sector who have more than one location and not more than 500 employees per location. We did get some guidance through the as of yesterday. Sole proprietors, independent contractors, and self-employed individuals are also eligible, but the final rule makes it clear that 1099s will have to apply separately. Borrowers must have been in business as of February 15th, 2020 to be eligible for the loan. A couple of exceptions to this less than 500 employee rule. You can still qualify under normal SBA industry-based classifications. They've got a size table that you can enter in information about your business to see if you qualify. As mentioned, there's a special exemption for the normal SBA affiliation rules tied to accommodations and food services. Franchises who have an SBA franchise identifier code, and any business receiving financial assistance from an SBIC. So the loan amount is 2.5 times your average monthly payroll cost, plus any outstanding SBA loans that have been made after January 31st, 2020. So the question that is, what's a payroll cost? The sum of payments of any compensation with respect to employees that include salary, wages, commissions, or other similar compensation, payment of a cash tip or equivalent, payment for vacation, parental, family, medical, or sick leave, allowance for dismissal or separation, payment required for the provisions of group health care benefits, including insurance premiums, generally only health, medical, and dental, though, are the exceptions, payment of any retirement benefit, payment of state and local tax assessed on the compensation of employees. In terms of calculating these payroll costs, does not include compensation of any individual in excess of an annualized salary of $100,000 prorated for the covered period. Also doesn't include taxes imposed or withheld under chapters 21, 22, or 24 of the Internal Revenue Code during the covered period. Any employee whose principal place of residence is outside the U.S., qualified sick leave wages for which a credit is allowed, and qualified family leave wages for which a credit is allowed. So here's just a visual of the loan amount formula. The maximum loan amount is up to $10 million. And so the question is then how to determine what your average monthly payroll costs are. Most employers will use their 2019 payroll. It's important to note the application materials state to use 2019 payroll amounts, but the statute says 1 year period before the loan was made. Seasonal employers will either use at their election the 12-week period beginning February 15th, 2019 or March 1st, 2019 to June 30th, 2019. Employers who are not in business during the period of February 15th through June of 2019. We'll just use January 1st through February 29th of 2020. You should refer to your forms 940 and 941 to help better gauge your payroll information. Some additional clarification in terms of loan amounts for sole proprietor, self-employed, and independent contractors. It's based on 2.5 times 2019 monthly average for wages, commissions, income, or net earnings from self-employment or similar compensation. And a new form may be released from the Treasury for independent contractors or sole proprietors. Now I'm going to turn it over to my partner, Justine, to talk through the forgiveness portion of this and then also application materials.
Hi, everyone. As Steph said, I'm Justine Konecki. I'm a partner at Corman, Jackson & Krantz, and I'm going to walk you through the forgiveness aspect of this loan. If you had asked anyone at KJK a year ago whether the Small Business Administration would be releasing $349 billion to small businesses with a 1% interest rate that was mostly or partially forgivable, and that interest was at 1% with a 2-year repayment, I think we all would have said that that would never happen and the world had gone crazy, and yet here we are. So really the intent and purpose of the act is to make sure that people stay employed and on payroll. So what the CARES Act provides is that if you use the loan proceeds for the following costs within 8 weeks after the loan is dispersed to you, the loan can be forgiven up to an amount that's spent on payroll costs, which we just went over, interest on mortgage obligations, rent, and utility payments. However, 75% of the amount of the loan needs to be used on payroll costs in order to ensure forgiveness, and I'll go over that as we continue on. Some little bit of additional info, as some or all of you may know, with usually under the tax code, if you take out a loan and that loan is subsequently forgiven, it triggers a cancellation of debt event, which then creates phantom income back to the business so that your tax liability increases. Here, the forgiveness will be tax-free to the business. The CARES Act specifically provides for that. Further, the rules, as I just mentioned, provide that 70% must be used on payroll costs. And because of the streamlined application process that the SBA and the government under the CARES Act has implemented, they want everyone to know and be reminded that if the proceeds from these loans are used for fraudulent purposes, that the U.S. government will pursue criminal charges. So it's really important when you apply to these loans to make sure you check the boxes, do the certifications, and then use the money appropriately. Forgiveness of the loan depends on not reducing your headcount and not reducing salary. So what the Act provides is that the forgiveness of the loan, which can be up to the whole amount of the loan, will be reduced if the ratio of your average number of full-time employees per month is during the covered period is lowered. So you can either look at your average full-time employees that were employed per month from the period of February 15th, 2019 to June 30th, 2019, or from this year, 2020 to February 2020. So that provides some flexibility for making this calculation. So let's say your headcount was higher last year around this time, and just based on circumstances isn't as high, you can still use your pre-coronavirus headcount from this year to ensure you maximize your forgiveness. So it also is important to know that the amount of any reduction in total salary or wages that is reduced more than 25% for any employee will also count against the amount of the loan that's forgivable, so that if you have cut wages by more than 25%, you're not going to be able to maximize forgiveness of this loan. So here's the forgiveness formula. You take the amount that was paid over 8 weeks that you used. So the loans originated to you for the next eight weeks, you spend it. You need to really make sure you are documenting how it's spent. Again, 75% needs to be on payroll. The remaining 25 needs to be on mortgage interest, rent, or utilities. You take that number and you multiply it by a fraction, which is the average number of full-time employees during the 8 weeks after the loan divided by the average full-time employees during that pre-coronavirus period. And again, that's either from 2019 or 2020. Then you take that and you subtract any reduction in salary that's more than 25% over the pre-coronavirus salaries, and then you get your amount of the loan that will be forgiven. The SBA, again, has said that forgiveness can be up to the total amount of the loan. There's a safe harbor provision, that's this slide. The safe harbor provision provides that if you are a business that was hit by coronavirus very early and hard, this applies to lots of restaurants and salons here in Ohio, that if you rehire employees that were laid off, and you pay them their back pay and restore their salary to pre-coronavirus levels, you can still take advantage of the forgiveness aspect of this loan. KJK had the opportunity to speak with Representative Gonzalez, who provided some more information about the intent of this loan program. And if you think about what the intent is, which is to get money in businesses' pockets so that they can pay the people that are working for them, it really makes sense why the forgiveness is structured this way and why the safe harbor exists. And so then the way to request forgiveness of the loan is to submit a request to your lender. So you have to provide a couple of key things. You have to verify the number of your full-time employees and their pay rates, as well as document the other 25% of the loan, how it was used for mortgage, interest, lease, and utility obligations. You also must certify that all of the documents you're providing are true, and that you use the forgiveness to keep your employees employed and to make the other covered payments. Once you submit all of this to the lender is obligated to make a decision and determination on the forgiveness of the loan within 60 days. So then we're going to run through We're going to run through briefly the application and what the application looks like. We just this morning have updated the following slides because the SBA came out with a revised application. So if you already had filled out the prior application, there are several versions that have been released this week. If you filled out a prior application, you really should contact your bank and discuss it with them and make sure that you're using the right application. So how do I apply for the loans? The applications are going to be made to the banks and preferably your bank. This program is not limited to just SBA lenders. It should be all FDI insured banks. This is a rather fluid situation. We're hearing through the grapevine that some relatively large banks, if not the largest bank in the country, is not participating in the program. And there are also some smaller credit unions or smaller banks that may just not have capacity. But we really are encouraging all businesses to leverage the relationships they currently have with their banks. And if your bank is not participating in this program, see if they have a recommendation on who you should go to. Anecdotally, I will share that Key Bank has been on top of things, and we think that they're a good resource if you're here locally. So if you have a banking relationship with Key, that would certainly be a place to go. So if you are a small business or a sole proprietorship, your application is live as of now. The SBA has confirmed this is a first come, first serve program. And we expect that the program will be oversubscribed. That being said, Stephen Mnuchin, who's the Treasury Secretary, did indicate that there may be additional funds available and that Congress may act to fully, overfund and continue to fund the program. But at this point, there's no guarantees that that's going to happen. And so we want everyone in Ohio, small businesses, to move fast. So independent contractors, those who are self-employed, your applications are going to start on April 10th. So if you're in that category, hold tight. That'll happen next week. And again, your applications have to be processed by June 30th. But again, this is a first come, first serve. So don't wait. That's our recommendation. And so this is what the application looks like. At the top, you're going to provide a detailed information concerning your applicant's ownership. So for a partnership, you can see what the requirements are. For corporations, it has to be 20%, all owners who have 20% or more of the corporation. Same for limited liability companies. And if the applicant is owned by a trust, you have to name the trustor. For sole proprietors, you have to name the sole proprietor. Then you have to ask answer questions 1 through 4, and these are questions designed to determine eligibility. So it deals with whether you've been ever suspended, disbarred, proposed for debarment, or declared ineligible for any federal for any, federal or agency money, or if you're involved in a bankruptcy, you're going to be ineligible. Whether you have an SBA loan that is currently delinquent, or if you've defaulted on one in the past, if there is any criminal or other problems, that also is disqualifying. That's question 4. And question 3 is whether the applicant or an owner of any other business with common management. So that's really looking for affiliations. So question 3 is looking at affiliations. Questions 5 through 7 are looking for certifications, and you have to have these certifications signed by an authorized representative. So there was a previous form that was before last night. Last night they came out with this updated application. It required this from each 20% owner. Now it just needs to be an authorized rep. And again, this is just more qualifying information. And I'm not going to go through each one because I want to be sensitive to everyone's time. Again, the second page of the application requires certifications. You have to make sure that you certify all of these, that current economic uncertainty makes the loan necessary, that the funds will be used to retain workers and maintain payroll, that you've not received another loan under the program, and that you'll provide the lender documentation that verifies all of the things we've discussed, that your full-time employees, payroll, and how you use the money for covered purposes. Again, there are additional certifications you have to make sure that you make in connection with the loan. And then again, you're gonna have to submit documentation as necessary to establish your eligibility. And if you don't have those documents, bank records may be sufficient, but that's, again, you're gonna wanna check with your lender. So this is probably the most important slide of today, which is the helpful and practical tips and what we're recommending. We really recommend that you contact your bank today. Again, these applications are live. Banks may have additional requirements in addition to the application that the SBA released last night, and that could include legal formation documents, tax returns, financial records, and we think that banks will prioritize their regular customers over new ones. So again, if your bank is participating, we highly recommend you leverage your current relationship. And you want to make sure when you are filling out the application that you read it carefully, and that when you are making the certifications that we briefly went over, that you are initialing and not merely checking a box. We think that and we heard from an SBA administrator that if you are merely checking the box and not initialing, that your application will be dinged and you'll go to the back of the line. So again, make sure you're reading the instructions carefully and filling them out. And then that really is our presentation. If you have any questions, our emails are on the screen. And as Abby mentioned, KJK has launched a dedicated website, coronavirus.kjk.com, that has all of this information and more. We will be making those slides available to Abby, and she can share through her network. And we want to just thank you for your time. I think Steph and I are now open for Q&A.
Yeah. And this is Steph, Justine. I have a couple of questions that are kind of on the same topics that I can throw out there to you. The first one, and Abby had gotten a lot of questions about this even before. Can you just go over and reiterate the safe harbor provision regarding hiring and rehiring?
Yeah. So if let's say you are your company or a business that was hit pretty hard and you laid off employees on or after February 15th, so if you rehire those employees that you were let go of in February, I think it's a little bit earlier, but if you rehire, so I'm sorry, let me back up. If you laid off someone between February 15th and 30 days after the CARES Act was enacted, which was approximately a week ago, give or take, if you rehire those employees and pay them back wages and restore their salaries, you are still eligible to forgive the full amount as if they had never been laid off. So if you were hit very hard and early by coronavirus and had to make some tough decisions, but you can now rehire them because of the Triple P program, don't worry, you'll still be eligible for forgiveness.
Great. Okay. So the second set of questions, we're getting a lot of questions around sole proprietors and single member LLCs. How are owners' draws calculated? How is compensation calculated when it comes to single member LLCs and sole proprietors?
Are you talking about for purposes of the amount of the loan?
Yes.
Okay, so let's pull up just so I have it in front of me. So the amount of the loan is going to be again the salary. You're talking about if you don't take a salary.
Correct.
I think we're still looking for some. I think we're still looking for some guidance on that. I'm going to say off the cuff because I haven't seen particular literature on that question. Is that my educated intuition says that whatever your draw is as a sole proprietor or single member LLC, and whatever you draw to pay yourself is going to be counted as what your payroll costs are. I know that if you are self-employed, so you pay self-employment taxes, your application's not up yet. It's not live, and it won't be live until April 10th. So if you're considered self-employed, then you'll be in a little bit of a different category and have a different application.
Okay. And then the last question is, and I'm not quite sure if it's necessarily related to this, but we've gotten a lot of questions, if you would know, is I know that there is a lot of rental property in Erie County, and that has seen probably declining reservations on vacations. Is there any specific provisions that would apply to these types of losses?
You're saying the loss of rental income?
Yes.
So that's a different program. That would be, I would have those people look at the EIDL program, which is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. So separate from the Payroll Protection Program that we've discussed and gone in detail on today, the Small Business Administration directly through their internet portal is accepting applications for EIDL loans. As part of the CARES Act, these EIDL loans now just provide for a $10,000 grant. So if you apply through the SBA website and ask for an EIDL loan, you can also ask for a $10,000 grant that should be quickly dispersed to you. The EIDL loans have some overlap with the Triple P loan, so you're going to want to look at it carefully and make sure you're not double dipping, i.e. you're not using funds for the same purposes. So I would suggest in those circumstances you look towards an EIDL loan rather than the Payroll Protection Program loans. Really, these loans are geared towards keeping working people working and making sure that businesses, through a forgivable program, can keep their employees paid.
Okay. And then I just have one final question in terms of just kind of going back to the safe harbor. One of the participants is asking, do I need to hire my employees back now in hope that the loan goes through? Or what does the timing look like on that?
Yes, you should rehire your employees now and use the loan proceeds that are originated to pay them. I mean, you can wait till your loan is accepted and dispersed and then rehire them, but the timing is meant to move fast. And again, I would talk to your bank and your lender about the timing and their recommendations, because it's not laid out in the statute. That's more of a practical question. So I really would work with your lender on the timing and what they recommend.
Okay. Well, I know there's a couple more questions, but I think in terms of categorizing what I saw, I think we've covered most of them. As Justine said, Abby is going to send out this presentation, but we'd also encourage all of you, if you have company-specific questions, feel free to reach out to our hotline today, and our attorneys would be more than willing to answer any of the questions the additional questions you might have.
Thank you, Steph. Would you mind putting back up the slide with that phone number as we close out today?
Absolutely.
Thank you, ladies. So that was a lot of good information in a short amount of time. We will look to get you these slides as soon as possible. Great resource here with their hotline. Feel free to call myself or Sarah Ross or your local business association as well. And I do want to emphasize the call your bank advice. That is really what we've been hearing from everyone as well. And use whatever banking relationship you currently have as your first priority, because they likely will prioritize you as well. So hopefully that is a local banker resource. If you don't have a contact at your bank, that also might be something